Yes, I was asked in summer to do half a day of the Film School Festival about virtual production. And my nature is to say, yes, fantastic, I do this. And then I realized later on, oh, wait a minute, that's a very difficult topic, because the difficulty is that kind of each day something is developing in this. And it is so fast developing that to tell or to talk about it feels like if you talk about it, it's already outdated because something else happens. And that's what I'm saying with development of technology. Development of technology is not going like a curve like this. Development is always going in steps, because someone invented something or something is happening under different conditions, and then it makes boom, and all of a sudden something is possible. And so the development is making a jump. And right now at the moment with this so-called virtual production, I think the name is not very well established yet, but will be in the future what it is exactly, is this jump. We humans are storytellers and spectators. So there are two kinds of humans, I would say, in this entertainment. We always have been, and in the beginning, of course, at the campfire, and then on stages, in written words, books, and now film as well. We know the rest, so we can go home. No, because a lot of things are changing, especially in storytelling in our world. That is, the campfire is now the planet, the globe, and we are millions, billions of people telling stories. But with our technology, we are all kind of connected. And that makes it a huge difference. So another world is being created, or is about to being created, or is in development, and that is not our real world. That is the unreal world. That's the virtual world. And that virtual world has to be built by computers, humans on the computers, but then, of course, software and artificial intelligence. So in the past, computer graphic, the cards, the simulations, was financed and fueled by the military. In the 80s, in the beginning of the 90s, the military is kind of financed what we could do with computer graphic. When I started, I was working on silicon graphics. Only 2 or 3% of the turnover of silicon graphics were entertainment. The rest was military. Then in the 90s, the game industry took over. So they tried to develop cards that are faster and faster to show things in real time for gaming. So the big investment came from the games. So what it is today? Today it is our social network. Because companies like TikTok or Facebook, Google, Apple, they want to have a possibility to double the business in terms of the real world and the unreal world. And to start business in the unreal world and the virtual world, you need to build the world there and to make it accessible for everyone. So if you want to talk to someone or show someone something, it's not only that you take a video or a picture or make a video call, but also you create yourself in the other world as well. And then you talk to others in their other worlds. So it's the social media is fueling what is coming next. The other thing what comes up right now, or not right now, since a couple of decades already, but as you saw in the last weeks in Glasgow, for example, it looks like our planet is kind of dying, or not the planet is dying, can't die, but we are dying on that planet, because this planet has troubles with what we do with the planet. So there's another now motive to change what we are doing, because the world we know now, or the system we know now, kind of comes to an end or has to change. Otherwise, in 30, 40, 50, I don't know, years, it will be difficult to survive. So what can it be? And in filmmaking, the idea was now, or is now, is it the virtual production? Because in virtual production, we do not have to cut trees, build houses in real, travel and all that. We can do this all in the computer virtually. Okay, we need a computer. We have to build a computer. We have to find electricity. So when we solve finding electricity with zero CO2 and building computers in a balance with nature in the future, then it's possible. And do our movies in the virtual world. This morning, I look forward what we are talking about, because we had the chance to invite some players, some people who are dealing with the new technique and see what is possible. So we will see later on someone from Dark Bay, a company in Babelsberg. They just finished the Netflix series. This one, 1899. And of course, they cannot talk about it. As I said in the beginning, it's so new that it is hard to talk about what is going on right now. Hopefully, I can get a little bit out of it. But of course, the experiences they did on shooting it. And we will have also a discussion with ARRI and Bavaria Studios, what they are up to, because they have a very interesting project that they are developing and got funded also by the subsidies. But in the beginning, first of all, I would like to introduce you to Professor Peter Zlansky, because he is not only the dean of this university, but he is also the head of the technology at the school. So I welcome Peter Slansky on stage.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome also from my side. As I see there are so many students from our school, I feel a little bit strange to tell them what they all know already. But of course, for our international guests, I want to give you an insight what we are doing and how our facilities are in our building, where here the festival of the International Festival of Film School takes place. We are sitting here in the Audimax, and you cannot see this Audimax on this picture because on the other side of the building. And I have a very personal relationship to this building because I worked 15 years as a responsible person from the side of the University for Television and Film in the building process. It took quite a long time, and now we are in. First of all, a little bit the commercial of the university. There were a lot of very successful alumni here, and here you see 5 of them, and winning an Oscar or a student Oscar, or having a nomination for the film The Story of the Weeping Camel. Yeah, it's great as a teacher to look back on former students like these people. And for the last Oscar ceremony that was made in presence in 2019, there were 3 nominations of alumni among the films in various positions. For example, Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck as a director, but also Max Wiedemann and Quirinberg as producers, or Tobias Siebert of Fathers and Sons, the producer, or Christopher Owen, born in Lebanon, as a cinematographer for the film Kafarnaum. So just as very brief introduction, the school was founded in 1967 by the Free State of Bavaria, and among the first students there were people like Wim Wenders and others who were very well known afterwards. Today we have about 340 students in 5 departments and 16 professors and about 80 employees. We take no fees. This is an international festival, and you have really to explain that. There's always this look in the face of our colleagues when they say, no fees? You give them money for the... Yes, it is like that in Germany. We have 7 departments right now. Media science and technology, where I'm teaching, are basic departments. And the students follow the program of all studies. Department 3, directing feature film, directing documentary, department number 4. Production and media business, department 5. Script writings, department 6. And cinematography, and now also VFX, is department 7. Just to give you the idea how this building was made, in 1999 there was the first planning. In 2002 there was a decision that we come here. The architectural competition took place in 2004, and after 4 years building, from 2007 to 2011, we could move in. Not everything was finished at that time. And last year, during the pandemic, we were able to renovate nearly all the post-production technique, and also found some other facilities, and found the VFX studies. So it's nice to work here. Well, this is the room we are actually in. We have a cinema, one of 3 cinemas, and this one is the biggest with 326 seats, but we have an additional 2. And this was done, of course, by purpose to be able to host film festivals. And we host lots of film festivals, or the festivals are asking us that they can use our cinemas. For example, the Munich Film Festival, the Documentary Film Festival, the International Festival of Film Schools. This year also the award ceremony of the German Short Film Prize, Cinema of Arts, and things like that. We have a lot of post-production facilities. I talked about the renovation, the media technology 2.0, as we called it, of about 1,500 square meters in the 3rd floor. Here you see one of our sound engineers in our biggest sound stage. The 4th sound stage is under construction. And we have also studios. If you ask yourself, why is this big concrete walls without any window, that's because of the studios. And we have 4 studios with up to 300 square meter. And I will show you some very brief images what we are doing there. We had 2 very unique things when we opened this school. And this is quite remarkable. It was indeed the small TV studio we have was in fact the first LED studio in the world with only LED lighting. And what we are doing in the in the studios, I will just show you a very short clip from our lecture in last May. And this has to do with virtual production because it is a classical film trick. Okay, this was a rehearsal that was shot on one day in a group of students, of course, and 2 lecturers. And as you have seen, if you looked at it, it was a front projection with 2 layers. So behind the first door, there was a front projection screen that was removed. And behind the second door, there was another front projection screen that was not removed. And in the break between the 2 story elements, the front projection changed from the whirlwind to the stable background with the rainbow. And this is exactly what we do in virtual production in another technology, and of course in real time. But it is very important, I think, to see the creative potential of the old classic film trick, like front projection or back projection, and to play with it, to explore the possibilities in this comic way, and get inspiration for the own projects. This is most important, I think, for our students. And I want to show you, well, I want to show you one example, and I'm very happy that Ivan Dubrovin is sitting right here. He's studying in the feature film department and has shot his film number 2 in our big television studio with another technique of front projection, but done with a nearly virtual production environment. And there they had a big screen, and the front projector was about here, below these practicables, and projected from a very short distance onto the screen. And the whole action took place on this area here, about 1 meter from ground level. There was also the camera, and was asking for some set photos, and I received them. Here you see the screen. The projector is down there. You cannot see it. Here's the camera, and here is the practicable area with the stairs. And of course, it only worked because all light from the scene in the foreground was blackened from the screen, was held back from the screen. Otherwise, it would not work. And here you see the utopic world in the background and the scene in the foreground. So this is a good example, I think, for technological creativity, and on a level that film students can afford, create their utopic world that has to be created for this story. What have we done also in the last years to get more into the innovative process, as Michael Coldewey has mentioned? In 2020, we founded the Vfx studies. I think there will be another presentation about that. So I just jump again. We also founded a symposium about artificial intelligence in media production. There has to be lots of research how we can use these technologies to enhance and develop media production. And we will shortly have, just 1 week, next week on Monday, we will have the next Munich KI symposium, and you are heartily invited to join us virtually. Some presentations are in German, some presentations are, most of them are in English. And by winning a competition, we also acquired a new professorship for AI research in media production. This is quite unique, and the jury was convinced that our concept was good. So we are very hopeful that we can say hello to the new professor in this year. And the future plans, I cannot talk about it too much in detail, because we are taking place in another competition, and there a huge amount of money is available. So if we are successful, it's really a very big thing. And the main concept is to initiate a creative innovation lab at the school with meeting of creative people with technological researchers and develop new tools for the media production process with AI included, with virtual production included, and also an integrative production management, because we are producing lots of films here, and we could I think we could do much better with the integrative process, cloud-based maybe, and also creating a media library that is unfortunately not really well developed right now, but also having an own virtual production studio set up for our studios, and in combination with the AI research, and create AI-based tools for creative film production, of course, for all students open that want to take place in this research. This is a little outlook, and thank you for your attention, and please take the chance to join our Artificial Intelligence Symposium next Monday. Thank you very much. So, dann brauchen wir wieder dich.
Ja.
Alles klar.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Peter. Yeah, it's for me it was important that you know where you are. I mean, the students here know where you are, but our guests from all over the world. Well, we saw a little seminar workshop already, but now I would like to show you what almost professional, not almost, professionally can be done at this film school, touching also a part of the virtual production. More the traditional type of virtual production, but I think it is important that you know what we are able to do right now. So I would like to introduce you to Paul Scholten. He is a student here for production, for producing. And before we start a little work through or talk about the project in details, because I wasn't there, I cannot tell this, what it was about, but I would like to show you the commercial. And with the permission of him and the production, we are allowed to show it, but we are not allowed to stream it or to take pictures of it or to record it. So please respect this. And dim the lights, please. Well, the applause is yours, of course. Yes, we have also the making of here as well. So maybe you have a few words you want to say about the production.
Yeah, hello. I'm happy that we can talk today a little bit about the project and the process of producing it, because when we created this film, our biggest question was how can we shoot the interior scenes in the car, especially with the kid. And on a certain, or from a certain point of, we were thinking about to use like the kind of virtual production. And I think now it was a good solution, because we were able to shoot all the interior scenes in the studio and to control everything. We also thought about to shoot it on a trailer at the beginning, but our second thought was that when we want to shoot in the blue hour, there's only a very limited time slot to do it. So we started thinking, is there another way to do it? And then we found a solution from Cologne. It's called Production Concept, and they have like big TV screens, 70-inch, and they build it around the car, and you can play each background you want to, and you can pre-select it and pre-create it also during shooting, which gives you a great flexibility even on set. And I think it was a really nice experience to do it here in the studio. And we had much more possibilities than to do it in real. Yeah. Should we wear the mask or?
You came through the security, so I think you're fine. We have also a little making of where you can see the setup in the studio a little bit better. I mean, what you see here is not kind of the setup is not a new invention, because backdrops or rear projections are being done since the beginning of cinema. But the integration nowadays is way advanced, and this is not what we are talking about later on. Because there's no interaction between the camera and the studio and your backdrop, right?
Yeah, and I think our main fear before shooting was if it would look real or if it would look like studio. And I think for us it worked very well because the background is really dark and there's not a real like concrete structure like buildings or stuff like that. I think that would be something different if you would shoot a day scene with buildings in the background. I'm not that sure how good it would work, especially with the lighting. But for this scene, it was like, I think the best solution and looks real. Yeah.
I mean, always in visual effects and all effects, it's good when it's dark, right? So it gets more expensive if the sun comes up and it's getting light. Yeah, here's some images, nice images. I mean, shooting with kids is always something special as well. You mentioned it. There are three elements: children, animals, and water. And those three elements are the difficulties in shooting. And so later you will see a project that was on a ship and in virtual production. And here we have the child. Would you say that this was a good solution at the very end to shoot it in like in this setup, then really in a forest on a trailer?
I think so, yes. We had the second shooting day outside during the real blue hour, and then we realized the time period is really short when you can shoot effective. And I think if we would have shot it on a trailer, we would have needed like 2 blue hours or something like that to realize it. And I would really like to try the system with a brighter background. That's something I would really like to experience. But I think for this kind of work, it was the perfect solution, or the right solution.
And here comes, of course, the question that producer always is facing, the budget. I know you cannot talk about the budget in detail, but would you say that shooting like this in this setup is more expensive or less expensive than shooting, even though it is difficult with the blue hour and stuff? But
I think it's depending on if you would really rent a studio to shoot with the virtual production. I think then I'm not sure if it's less expensive than to go on a trailer where you need to rent the trailer and the crew. But I think, especially in this situation when you have a very special light you want to tell in the film, it's more effective because you have the whole day for shooting one light situation, compared to a trailer when you have only like 2 hours, but you have to pay it for the whole day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the next thing is then the real virtual production stage, where you have an interaction between the cameras, and then there is no other way to do this in this called LED volumes. And right now, I think the price tag for it for commercials is, if you shoot on a virtual production stage, it's around 35,000 euros per day.
I think I can tell this with this system, it's around 6,000 euros for one shooting day, regular. And but for us as students, they made a better price. But I think it's still affordable for like professional productions for a whole day with a crew for like 3 people. Yeah.
I mean, since a couple of years in Cologne, there's a studio where they do all the driving scenes for Tatort and all those TV productions in this like this. Also, nowadays, the regulations and law on the street and because of insurances and things are making it more and more difficult to shoot in traffic, to drive with the car through the traffic with cameras. I mean, in the past, there was no problem. You just mounted the camera and that's it. Nowadays, it's because of the insurances.
And like also for us, it was really difficult to find a street which you can block for one day, that there are no other cars passing through. And I think that's also a factor. If you want to block it another day for shooting on trailer, it doesn't make it easier. So,
are there any questions right now from you? Oh, yeah, Peter.
How did you do the alignment of the different screens?
Like the crew, they came with 2 people, and they have like 3 screens, and they build it like there's like the space between the screens. They hide behind the part between the windows from the car, so you don't see it. Yeah. There's only one thing you cannot shoot with this system, and it's if you look from the back of the car through the front glass, because there's too much space, so they cannot hide the different like the space between the LED monitors.
ABC Säule.
Yeah, ABC Säule. I don't know in English.
No, the English word for it. Yeah, it's where the roof is mounted. Yeah, of the
but
car.
like every other angle is possible to shoot. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait a second. I want to, because of time, I would like to show you also something else. When we dive into the other world, the virtual world, the unreal, then we have to deal, of course, also with characters, figures, actors, ourselves, but as an avatar. So this is a big topic as well in virtual production. So virtual production is not only a stage. That's why I'm saying that this word is a little tricky. Some say LED volume for it and try to find other words. And what we do here at the film school is also learning and training and doing little seminars with motion capture. Motion capture, of course, is something that now is in the industry for a long time. In animation, it was always kind of a tool to create animation, more coming from rotoscoping. So you rotoscope each frame, and then you get it in a different style or drawn, or later on in puppet animation or computer animation. But with computer, you can start tracking what you film, and that gets more and more advanced. And of course, it has to be one of the tools we use here at the university as well, and to be prepared for the future in virtual production. I will show you a little, very little short, what we did when we started motion capture. It was 2019. Yeah. Oh, I have to play. Good. So this was our actress, Tekla. Okay, I have to say that we can't do this every semester, this long short film, because we only have 1 week. But with the help of Luis Guggenberger and Kalim Shalabi and David Emmenlauer, we were able to do this. And because it was the first workshop, I decided to have a final product of it, so everyone can see what we are able to. In the background, you saw, by the way, the museum of Abgussmuseum in English, where you can make casts from original statues and reproduce those as a museum. It's in the neighborhood, and this is one of the studios, of course, here at the HFF. And it was for me important to show you that, of course, the skeleton is virtual, but nowadays with what is developed is coming again from game engines or game companies, developers, in terms of photoreal and real-time rendering. Real-time rendering in film means like 30 frames per second. That's our real time. In games, of course, there are way much more frame rates, but we only need 30 frames per second being rendered in real time. You can imagine what is coming up, because everyone maybe have already Googled meta-humans from Epic Games. They do make this engine Unreal 5, and combining those meta-humans that are in the beginning now of development with motion capture possibilities and artificial intelligence recognizing movements. The future is changing our filmmaking a lot. Are there any questions regarding this little topic, motion capture, as well? I mean, you saw we had an actress, not a student, because I wanted to give the students the possibility to really work with actresses and actors on stage. Because in real life, the animation or the movement can only be as good as the one who is doing it. Either it's yourself, then it's like an amateur or someone who is not able to act. Or if you want to tell a story, like in a movie, then you of course need to have actors or performancers who can act, because this is what you can see. Now the time is, I think, good for having a little break, because we are doing always a little break or more breaks nowadays to get some more fresh air. And we continue then on 11 o'clock with Christina Kaspas. She's the managing director of Dark Bay in Babelsberg. And I'm looking very much forward to see what she can tell us or is allowed to tell us. Okay, thank you. See you later. Now we come to a case study I'm so proud of, because it is something that normally in this stage of production is not possible to get any information out of it or about it. But because this new technology is involved and it has to be shown for other productions what is now able to do, it is necessary to talk about it. In the future, not in the future, now there are so many so-called visual production stages or LED volumes in planning and in building, in construction, that it will be everywhere in the future anyways. But this is a kind of, I would say, a pioneer work. Not seen the results, and the results we cannot watch for a long time, I think, but we will I don't know. We all know about the TV series Mandalorian, where Epic Games did a very good marketing job, and taking Mandalorian as a big commercial for their Unreal Engine and virtual production. At the end, as we all know, they shot a lot conventional, of course, and green screen. But that's the beginning, only the beginning. And now scripts and contents are produced to use this type of technology. So I would like to, before I introduce you to the managing director, I would like to show you a little video showing you what we are going to talk about. I hope it plays. Okay, so please welcome Christina Kaspas on stage.
I can take that one.
Yeah, you can use those microphones or you can use this one.
Whatever.
If you want to run around, then maybe you...
I might run around, let's see.
Come on stage, Christina. Yeah, we know each other for a long time because she was working at Trickster as well before she left and went to Dark Bay. And now you are managing director of such a company, unbelievable. For me, I was very surprised when I heard it the first time. How come? How are you getting to this tech job?
That was quite a long journey, but seriously, it starts back then when I worked for Trickster and I got more and more techie. And the only logical conclusion was to stay in this weird industry. And the step from VFX going to virtual production is not that big. So, so like last year, Philip Klausing, Jantje Friese and Baran Bo-Oba asked me if I would join the journey of Dark Bay. And back then it was, I heard about VP, yes, and I know these guys, but it was all very crazy because there was 1899, the project got a final go, and 2 years ago there was like a location recce done and everything was settled. COVID came, and Bo decided at a certain point to say, okay, we still want to do that project, so we have to find a different solution how to do it, and therefore we do it in VP. And when we heard that, it was kind of, oh gosh.
VP is virtual production.
Oh, sorry, virtual production. And we thought then, oh my God, how should we do that? As you mentioned, we know Mandalorian, but I know barely people who have worked with virtual production in a larger extent than 2D playbacks. And so we were running around and see if there's a studio existing which we could use. And we really went all over the world, but there was no studio that fits all the requirements for 1899. So the only logical conclusion was, let's build our own studio. And luckily Netflix was on board, and also the Federal State of Brandenburg and other partners like ARRI, Framestore and Faber AV. And then we built it together. That's how I ended up what I'm doing right now.
It's, I think, a perfect example how, in this case, content is the driving force, and not a regional government thinking, oh, we want to be, the best one. We subsidize a company that is building up new technology, and then we wait for the content.
That's exactly. I want to second that. And Michael, just one example. Sorry for talking that much already in the beginning.
No, you're here for this.
But we have two USPs. One of this you can see you can see both of these in our studio. And this is something that was only invented because we had to find out how to use with a certain limitation of technology, but to facilitate what we want to show in 1899. So we invented the worldwide unique turntable in a VP studio, which can turn, you can see it in here. So this goes around 21 meter diameter, and you have the chance to turn your set around within 3 minutes. And this is something that Bo wanted to use in order to shoot from different angles in a very short redressing time. And same applies because what you can see, there is a certain, we call it a pool liner in here, and we have rain nozzles installed to have physical rain in an LED volume. And this is all content driven. So we really go, what do the creatives need, and how can we facilitate that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fantastic. When is 1899 coming into Netflix streaming? You don't know.
I do not know. Sorry. Potentially I do know, but I do not know.
So it reminds me a little bit of my past, and at what point, because I remember when I tried to do an animated feature film in 1994 with talents that were not in Germany at the time, and find the right people. That was a challenge. The Fearless 4. And luckily, a big international studio closed the doors in London because they moved over to Los Angeles and founded DreamWorks. And so a lot of people came from London to Munich, and we did our animation feature. But how could you get then finally your talents? Learning by doing, learning
by doing, and learning by communicating. So that was really the crucial part. I mean, what we had is, and this is something we had only a construction time of the volume of, so we got the final go in October 2020. Then we had to, luckily, for us, luckily, we had the chance to get short-term a lot of LED panels, which are normally not available anymore, because at this point in time, the event industry did not really had a peak because of COVID, so it was easier to get some LED panels, and we had like two months to get this. To get the order in place, and then we built it really in 2 months. So it's more than the 30 seconds you saw in the beginning, but still it was a very short time, and this only worked because of collaborations. So to this large extent, no one had the experience to do a VP studio before, so we were talking a lot. And virtual production is still a lot about communicating with each other than talking with each other, especially when it then comes also to the point that, okay, what do you want to see in the volume? So you start with a previous process, that there is an Unreal artist that provides the environment, how does our stage look like, and then we put set pieces in. The director gets a VR headset on, and he or she can play with it. And this is actually the starting point. And then you have like an art director coming in who builds the physical sets before the CG environments gets created, because we think, coming back to the point that creatives are in the focus, that the physical set build should be the first and not any technical limitations should come first, and then everything else has to follow.
Yeah, this is also something you need to know. We didn't mention yet. Maybe the water you see here is not done by a 360-degree camera footage or something like this. Or like with the car commercial we just saw done from the side of seats. This is generated in real time.
Exactly.
Right?
This is Unreal Engine real-time content, as it's needed to be like this because of we're shooting with one camera with an inner-outer frustum and a second camera for inserts. So one that could show the wall in focus, not really in focus, because you should not have the wall in focus in VP at the moment, at least. But
moiré effect, right?
Not even that's the crucial part. So luckily we don't have to bother with any moiré effect at all, knocking on wood, because we used the turntable as a limitation. And so we still had 2 meters between the wall and the physical set build. So the camera was always like 3 meters, not coming closer to the wall than 3 meters. So we didn't deal with the moiré effect at all. It was really more about, what was the question, Michael?
I know there was not a question, just mentioning the focus, that you're not focusing on the wall.
Exactly. So don't focus on the wall. That's not good. It's not working at the moment. Yes, please don't do that. It's still an LED, RGB, not good to see.
But keeping the discussion on that real time. So you have to imagine rendering in real time water simulation and cloud simulation and everything in this size is something crazy. But you did a little tweak on that, right? You told me before, in where the camera is looking at and the rest.
Exactly. So we're tracking, of course, the camera. We're using a Vicon tracking system for that. So I think maybe you do not see it in that pictures. I doubt that you see it in the next one. No, but maybe you can see it. There are on the upper side of the wall. You see some blue lights. These are our tracking cameras, Vero and Viper-X cameras, and they are communicating with the crown, which sits on.
You can. You can, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the white dots on the camera.
How can, sorry, it's too technical for me using that one.
Es geht nicht.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You have to come more close on.
Now you see it. Here exactly. There you see these blue dots where our Vero and Viper-X cameras are sitting, and they are located all over the wall. And they are communicating with the crown, which sits on top of the camera, which you cannot really see that good in this picture, but you can imagine. So there are also some some dots. The crown is like an LED light that communicates then with the other lights. And so the Unreal Engine always knows where the camera angle is. And with this, it shows like in camera, you always have the best resolution. And out of the camera focus, it's a little bit more blurry. And I mean, the virtual production is anyhow used for reflections. So everything that's out of the camera is used then more for reflections on the actors, on the assets, on whatsoever.
Yeah, so to make it easy, that's a kind of motion capturing, but not a character. The camera is motion captured in real time and connected to the other camera, the one that is showing the waves or the background.
I think you can see it a little bit actually here on the side, where you see, okay, the ocean goes until here and then there is a gap and then the ocean continues here. So here you see this is the inner frustum and this is the outer frustum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. I mean, that's crazy. Can you imagine that? As what I said in the beginning, children, animals, water. And here we have the water, so we have the solution. But but you are tied to the deck, so you cannot. The other establishers and stuff, they have to shoot it kind of traditionally or do it full CG, because you can't leave that deck with your camera, right? You can't move into it, of course not.
I cannot move into the CG environment. Yeah. That should not happen because of the physical limitations of an LED wall and an LED, because you have the red, the green, and the blue light in there, and at a certain point you see it, and it will never give the light that you want to see in an episodic and feature film. That's also why we used, for example, in the ceiling, which you can also see at the top of the image, we also enriched this one with ARRI sky panels. So these give a better light then, and and not having these limitations of the light within the LED wall. So you normally needed LED, and virtual production is really there to use and embrace reflections, where you normally, a scriptwriter says, use everything, and a DOP says, don't use anything that causes reflections, and we are saying use everything that causes reflections. Same applies also when we're using our rain. So in this in this shot you cannot see it, but in other shots we have used physical rain, and then you could see like when some water is on the deck, and then you see reflections in that water, and it feels natural for your eye. When you normally have like a film and you see something is not really going right, you do not know what, and here it feels correct.
Yeah.
Same applies, by the way, for the reflections in the eyes. I doubt that a lot of VFX companies like to put reflections in the eyes of actors, and here you have it in every shot.
I mean, this is one of the biggest advantages of those volumes. Did you have also the situation where maybe some of the set pieces, props are physically, but also later on in the background?
Potentially, yes. We definitely did a test with these, and this is something which is like another advantage. It's a huge advantage, because you once create, as I said, first the physical set piece, and then build the CG set piece afterwards, and then you have to adjust it in lighting. This is another crucial part, by the way, having a pre-lighting day or a pre-lighting session before shooting, because the light on an LED wall is of course different than a physical light, and in camera it's again different. And these three lighting sources or lightings have to be aligned, and sometimes a light like a lamp looks super different. The color of a lamp looks super different when you have it as a physical set piece and on the LED wall, but then it gets combined super perfect when you see it in camera.
So can you imagine, I don't know if you used it, but you have a prop built in real, and the actresses are touching it, and then you scan it, you have it in 3D, and then you use it in a different way or scale. And in the background, or the other way around, you create something in your computer animation, and then you print it in 3D, paint it, and the one is getting it in hand as well. So the other way around.
We got a 3D printer.
You see? So this all makes it kind of now possible to switch between the real and the unreal, right?
Absolutely. I really think this is a huge advantage, and it will never be like that VFX or green screen will go away, because what we also did is when we were unsure about a certain scene, we said like, okay, or a certain setup, let's have it once with the CG background on and then just put the screen on green and use it as a green screen as a huge one. So we still have the possibility afterwards to replace it if we were unsure what to show or if it would really work the way we want to see it. But we really got a lot of shots in camera. So it's an advantage if you plan it correctly. And this is again where it comes to the communication part, because it's so different than traditional principal photography. Normally you say, yeah, I plan something, I shoot something, and then I care about everything else. So it's like this, we fix it in post, Michael, you and I, you know what we're talking about.
Absolutely, the sentence, fix it in the post, what the sentence is that all the visual effects industry loves, you know. No, you get shot by the visual effects guys if you say this on set. Yeah. Here now, it's the other way around. You have a lot of work that you do normally in post-production, now in pre-production. That is a big game changer in a lot of things.
Absolutely. Can I push on your computer?
Course, yeah.
So let me show you once this. This is for me an example I'm using often because I'm running around at the moment. In Germany, we say like a Wanderprediger, and talk to many productions about virtual production. Because they normally say, hey, I have a script, I have everything in place, and next week I cannot fly to Singapore, can I shoot these scenes in VP? And I say, well, yes, theoretically, and it will never work that way because you have a very long planning phase. That's what it is. So you have to decide at a certain stage to do VP. And this is what we did with 1899. The idea was there, it was written, we had a treatment. And then, as I told previously, the previous phase has to start where we started using a VR headset and playing around with certain assets and how an environment could look like. And then the art department has to work closely with the virtual art department and the VFX department. And there already it gets complicated because these parties or these companies and departments are never worked together before at this stage in any shooting. So this is where you have to do a lot of communication already. Same applies when going into the game engine, because when using a game engine, you have certain limitations because it's real time. And you need to have a partner here that knows these limitations, and we're also providing this for certain partners to go, okay, how far can you go with it? What can you do? What can't you do? Same applies for the final asset creation. So how close will this asset be in your storyboard and later on in your principal photography? And you have to decide and commit very early in time to how your shooting will look like. So, and this is also involves a lot of work from the director and from the DOP to be on the same page and go for this. And then, we have the official stunt-viz, pre-viz, tech-viz phase. Tech-viz very important because of seeing how do certain reflections work and how don't they. Because what you saw previously is like we're having the floor, and if you want to show a reflection of any asset, for example, a car on a floor, then you see the floor and you have to, like, we don't have any reflections on the floor. It's just a wooden floor. And if you want to see reflections from the bottom, you have to put something like a glossy material on the floor. And seeing this and knowing this before is very crucial. And then the real production starts. So like I would say like 40% of the work that normally starts after principal photography has to be done beforehand. So yeah, that's very important in here. But therefore the outcome and later on the editorial gets less and less painful, because a lot of things that you normally have to fix and said we fix it in post have been already decided, and also a lot of the communication where you see normally in after principal photography, the principal photography crew is gone, and then VFX has to deal with different people who don't know what the director wants during shooting, so they interpret how a certain scene could look like. So this work has already been done before, and so everything that ends in post is now shortened. And this is the very different workflow. Michael, did I miss anything? Yes, of course.
There's no color grading.
The color
grading.
Okay, so color grading is still something that could be needed, but I mean, I would lie if I would say it goes away completely, but a lot of things are really done on set during shooting, at least for the VP part. So 1899 was also not shot completely in the virtual production stage, but partially in there, and everything was planned around this virtual production shoot, because you have to plan it properly to use it in a way that it really makes sense. Yes, so it will still take place, and it belongs under editorial somehow.
Are there already questions now? Or? Yeah, do you have another question? Yes? So I repeat the question for the recording, if there's a recording going on, and if it is allowed to record. The transition between the computer-generated assets and then in the virtual production using it, right? There's a microphone. Sorry for. Thank you.
Okay. Imagine going in with the camera, like seeing the whole boat in this occasion, like in full CG, and then transitioning to the like virtual production shot. How easy is that? Can you like use the environment you built before to do that, or is that impossible?
It really depends on the setup. Sorry, this will not be a satisfying answer to it. It really depends on how you build your scene. Because what we have, for example, is so our screen has in total 22K. So if your scene could facilitate that, it works, but it's complicated. It could get complicated. But it's theoretically possible. Sorry.
There's another question.
So just that I understand this correctly, is it theoretically possible to work with two cameras, or are you doing this and the Unreal Engine renders the images simultaneously for both cameras?
So you can shoot with more than one camera, and that works quite good. But so we're using only one inner and outer frustum. So always the wall is only with one camera within focus. I'm trying to avoid saying in focus, because you should not really put the wall into focus. But you mean, and the second camera we're using for inserts, for example, when you film an actor from the side and have the environment as a blurry background, that works perfectly. It could also work with two cameras in focus. And then it's a certain matter of how you program it, because then when these cameras with two different frustrums overlap, you have to program which frustrum wins over the other one. So it's theoretically possible to shoot even with more cameras, and Unreal allows it, but we're playing with one camera in focus and more cameras for inserts, because it's just easier to facilitate and also get the data out, because after tracking you always need also a certain pipeline and have a versioning system behind it so that you can deal with these things.
Okay. There's another question. One second, because
thank you so much. Yes, can you maybe tell how was the time planning on the set, like while you were shooting? Like, what took you the most time? What was the most complicated thing? Was it really that easy? Like, were you actually faster doing that kind of shoot than maybe shooting on a boat?
So yeah, quite good question. And in the planning phase, we had like a lot of buffer days in for virtual production if something does not run that smoothly whatsoever. And from day one, everything was working. So really, I mean, we have to face the crew that facilitates or works at the brain bar. That's how we call the control system for the LED elements. They have to be in 1 hour before the crew callers, because they have to set everything up and get everything running. But when it's once running, you really shoot faster than in any other environment, because you do not have to wait for weather conditions, for rain, for anything else, and you do not even have the redressing time due to our revolving stage, where you just say, okay, I need another position. I just turn the set in 1 minute, and you only have to give the information of how many degrees you have turned the turntable to the Unreal Engine, and then they know what the according shooting angle is. So the biggest hassle really is to get everyone committed once to do it, and then as everyone, so the first 2 weeks were, I hope that everything runs that smoothly. The first day was like, okay, it cannot be that good, but it really turns out to be that good, and it pays off when you say, I use a certain environment for a certain amount of time, and I have a fictional environment which I cannot reproduce easily, or I have to go to a castle, to something that is not easy to find a place to go, and also having a big crew somewhere in the world where you do not want to have that big crew. So then it really starts paying off.
So there's is there another question? Okay, sorry.
How easy was it to find the construction or engineer team who built this volume, because it's quite a new technology?
Building the volume, that was actually a funny thing. So we were asking ourselves, how can we do that? And we were testing then in the UK, because we thought, okay, they have more experience than someone here in Europe. But no, we were then ending up with ARRI as they took over the construction of it, and they worked closely together with Faber AV. Faber AV has done all the LED constructions, and what we have done, I mean, the stage we built our volume in is from 1930. And there was like wood, and so sand and wood over it. And we could not easily just put an LED wall of 7 meters height in there. So we had to get the sand out, get concrete in. And but these people were working so great together, our partners actually, that it really went for me as not being responsible that it runs smoothly. It really went well. So no, I'm not kidding. We had like 2 months and it worked really great, even if these people have never worked before together. By the way, funny story, we found like a little tram ticket and a Schnapsflasche from 1930 was in the sand when we had to get it out. So that was really cool.
Good that you didn't find a bomb.
Right. Then we wouldn't have done 1899 that fast.
Yeah, this morning in Munich, they found a bomb. So. Okay, so visual effects, the definition of visual effects is that you do your effects not on set, that's special effects. So now it comes a little bit out of order because this is in-camera visual effects type of. I'm mentioning this because some of you are from visual effects industry and you know the workflow. And when you get to a certain point where you say, okay, let's have a look together with the client on the work we are now at or the final work, you can watch it over and over again, and you can do versions and versions. And the ones who worked for Marvel, they know that it can end up like 100 times getting the approval of a shot because you have that time kind of. Here now, you have the entire crew, you have the actors, everyone on stage, and the visual effects are kind of done in that moment. So how could Bo and the others decide, that's my shot, that's final, let's do it?
So normally a director is, or I know it from a lot of directors who hate watching everything through a monitor. And they want to stand right beside the DOP and see everything with their eyes. And this is not possible in VP. You have to watch it through a monitor. So poor Bo had to go after every shot to the team, give his comments, go back in his little cute cabin, which is obviously also on set, but he has to watch everything through this monitor because, as I said, the colors are so different, and also it only get merged in camera then when you do VP. So yeah, so this is really, and so that's where he decided. And of course, I mean, we took a lot of angles and shots, though Bo still has the chance to decide on this in editorial.
No, I think it's not for every director then, huh?
It might not be, so you have to really get used to that. It's different, and same applies for the DOP. You also have to get used to Nick Summerer, who's also from Munich. He had to be there for the pre-lighting day. No matter what, you have to decide on the lighting setup one day before so that the Brainbar team can do adjustments and also the gaffer team can do exactly these things. And this is mandatory, even if the team is not like bored and does not want to do it because the next day the shoot is anyhow there. But this is like something you have to really train them into. But I mean, our team was amazing. They have committed to it at a very early stage. And this is I would say, one of the most crucial parts why 1899 has worked that way, that great.
There is a question.
I would like. Thank you. Are there any issues about sound? Because you're in an industrial hall, it is usually not insulated with sound, and you have huge reflectors for sound by the LED elements.
Again, a very good question, because what has happened when we built the stage and there was no set built in? I mean, our wall has 270 degrees, so it's not closed completely. We're having an LED walling and a wall and an LED gate, which can be used for reflections and bringing it to 360 degrees, but we do not need it as we have the revolving stage in. But we were standing then, when there is no set piece in, we were standing in the middle and you can hear a very bad echo. And a lot of stuff was ongoing, a lot of thoughts, how can we avoid that? And I can tell you like 100 examples what our poor sound designers have tried or wanted to do, but luckily it turns out as soon as you have a set piece in, it works perfectly. So it's really like as soon as you have a certain amount of set piece in, it works and it's not needed anymore. I do not know exactly from when set piece on it works, but for our setups it has worked all the time.
So you did not use any acoustic elements for?
Not at all. Not even. I mean, the thing that was most like a little bit annoying at the beginning was the processors behind the wall that have a certain summen Exactly, but I mean, we put a little bit of a sound system around that, and like avoiding sound to these black thingies that make everything easier, which you see in a sound cabin. But other than that, it was not needed at all.
Well, it's a good question because as you saw this little seminar with motion capture, the skeleton, it is so important always to think about the sound as well in the virtual world, because there is no sound. As in space is no sound, but we think there's a sound. Our world is full of sounds. So you have to recreate, create, or fake sounds as well as the image.
Definitely. I can, unfortunately, I would love to say something to this, but I cannot do it.
But I have another question that is, of course, when you see a set piece like this, it is a ship, and whoever was on a ship in real knows that the ship is moving, and the people get seasick. How did you do this with the moving, or pretend that the actors pretend to move, or got someone seasick? Because I know some actors already shot in those LED volumes because it's all around you that they kind of, get sick.
Luckily, no one got seasick, so that was good. And we didn't move our physical set at all. So the only things that moved are the virtual backgrounds. And that works quite well in camera. So, and I think that was also the benefit, so that none of our crew members, actors, nor any camera, sound, or whatever person got seasick. But we had concerns at the beginning.
But I can imagine that, for example, the water simulation, you render the sea level, this horizon, and if you are on an actually ship or boat on the water, and then you see the water is going like this, so you move your camera always straight because you try to stand straight on the boat. The boat is doing like this, Now here, if the background is doing this, but you stay on a stable ground, you have to kind of fake it then, right? Or is there no storm?
I do not know, Michael. I'm sorry. You tried to really find something out about 1899, and it almost worked. I was short before saying something, but sorry.
No, I don't want to. It's fine. On Monday that starts streaming, right? On Monday?
Yeah, it's next Monday. No, it's not.
Next year, 2 years. Okay, good. Are there other questions? Because here's the chance to try to get infos out of Christina. No. Well, I have to say I'm very impressed, and I have to thank you so much that you spent your time, and you are here in Munich. I mean, she's living in Berlin, and,
thank you.
In person, and on our times especially, to see this. And I hope that this is not the last time, because so it's not the last project, but also you are developing more. And do you have plans after 1899 already, or how is it going?
Actually, yes, of course. I mean, luckily we do have plans for after 1899. So we have another production that just has finished or wrapped in our volume. We're now doing a little tech viz. So we have to align our systems to another Unreal version and stuff like this, because you always need a certain maintenance time in between. And then we're having what we might do in between. We're also considering some commercials, as it's still, I mean, it works for VP quite well, and the commercial industry is already quite used to it. That's also an easy thing then. And yes, there are other productions lining up next year. And we're, of course, I mean, we're also looking into expanding our team. So hello out there.
No. Well, they have to study first. I mean, don't touch our students.
We're also doing internships.
very good. Very
Can
good.
I
Yes.
ask one question more?
Yes, of course.
It's I'm just really interested in this topic, and we also did something similar. And my question is, how easy was it to improvise with that kind of technology? I mean, because on real film sets, you can just if the director has an idea, he can just like put the camera on a different angle. How far is this possible in this kind of set?
It's still possible. It really depends on what the improvisation should look like. So if it's just about another camera angle, it's all fine, no worries at all. This works perfectly. If it's also about putting one of the waves or one of these C elements to another point to another point at the wall, that's also fine. It really depends on what the needs are. But I mean, the good thing, you have a certain storyboard, and when you get a certain commitment from a director DOP, then you have like a guideline, but you have to be that flexible to look to the left and to the right. So what has happened also sometimes when we were talking about these pre-lighting days, and then not only the DOP comes, and it's of course sometimes also the director joins. So Bo is then with Nick in the volume, and if they then decide that whatever they see as a physical or as a CG background does not fit, then there has to be an overnight change.
Okay. And
So storyboarding is quite crucial and different than doing storyboards for not virtual production.
Yes, and it's different because we do it really with VR headset on. And we're really doing this virtual scouting a lot. So we're having then in the when wearing a VR headset, you have the limitations, or you have the wall in front of you. We can put the CG environment or an idea of how the CG environment looks like, and then it started with something like we call it Vfx blocking. So you have like, okay, this triangle could be a ship, and I would like to place it there. And then you have a look from certain camera angles. Does it work in the way that I wanted to see it? And this get then more defined from every session to session.
So you have a special room, like a mini studio, where you do this Trockenschwimmen.
Yep. That's what we actually really have.
And how far in advance did the storyboard had to be finalized?
Actually, it was it got finalized still. It got like redefined still during shooting, but we had so you have to commit to a certain concept. It really depends on the amount of shooting days you're having and the amount of environments you're having. But I would say you have to admit at least or confirm a certain rough storyboard 2 months before you start shooting, depending on how many shots and how many CG environments you're having. I mean, if you're having one, of course, this can be shorter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. I think we are done, because we always need this little break in between, and don't worry that not enough people here because of COVID. That's why we stream it later on, but edited, censored, kind of in was it YouTube? I think so. I don't know. So there are no other questions. You all know my email. I know her email. So if you have questions, we hope that we can answer. And then comes after the break another interesting part. What is happening in Bavaria with ARRI and Bavaria Studios. So hope you have time to spend another hour. Thank you very much, Christina, for being here.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, guys.
Start from your side.
Yeah, maybe I think it's a good idea. Just sorry for being not there in person, but the COVID situation is getting worse and worse here, and we are living more and more in a bubble, so we don't risk the productions we have in the next but it seems like this works as well. There is a strong partnership at the moment going on in Bavaria. It's a partnership between Bavaria Studios, ARRI, and eyeline, Scanline. And the three of us, we just started a few months ago with our research project. And can you hear me? Yeah, Michael? Okay, sorry, there's some connection problem. And we started with a research project. It's called BaViPro. And the goal of this research project is to bring all the capabilities and resources of three very strong film production film companies from Bavaria together and start our own virtual volume production entity here in Munich and Bavaria. There's been some press releases already. I told Mike in the preparation of this panel talk that actually there's not so much that we can at the moment talk about because we are in the middle of the research. So we're just having premises, assumptions, thesis, and we are checking everything to find out what would be the best for the German, for the Bavarian and German production landscape, and how can we invest? How much can we invest? And how big it is, and then at what scale can we do this investment here together? And the ARRI is like in charge for the, of course, its core capabilities. It's lighting and cameras. Eyeline, Scanline is everything that's related to the visual effects part and Unreal engines and everything that's that you can finally see on the screen. And our part is the LED technique, the stages, and the set construction. So, and these are all the parts where we just began with our research. So that's where we are at the moment. And so I'm open for any question or discussion because as you might realize, there is not this one thing where I can say, we're gonna do it exactly like this, and this is the best thing you can do. So we're not in this thing where we can advertise for this. We just in the phase of we discuss internally and of course also externally because we need the feedback from filmmakers, from researchers, from people from the technical side. So this is where we are at the moment.
Thank you very much. So for me, it is important. This is very, very important talk now because we are in the film school and the students here, they are facing another couple of years, maybe 4 years. So you can imagine in 4 years, you can't, but we don't know what is in 4 years, but in 4 years, your project is already, established and experiences and so on. And this is the exciting moment to see and to discuss something that will come in the future, because now we listened to Christina talking about their stage that did already a production, but they're in Babelsberg. That's a nice place, but they are working. Now we are here at the moment to find a new possibility, and also there is, as you all know, the pioneers. They are suffering. The pioneers have always the problems being the first, inventing everything the first time, going through everything the first time. And the ones who coming after the pioneers are the benefiters. They, earn all what then they can, just follow and it's fine. Now you're talking to the pioneers. And that is so important because in a couple of years, when you shoot your projects and do your movies, you remember us maybe here on stage talking about the future. So thank you so much that you have time here. Markus.
Well, thanks for inviting us, Michael. And of course, it's a pleasure being here. And of course, also on behalf of ARRI, congratulations to your 40th anniversary. And It's not only close proximity, walking down the streets and coming here, but of course, while being in Munich, in the region, and also then working closely over all those years together with different departments and the students, as you hear. I just thought maybe explaining my personal journey, no worries, not about my whole life, but the personal journey on mixed reality, how we call it, coming to this spot today. And well, 2 years ago, we heard that Mandalorian is shooting. Of course, our colleagues in US were in contact with Industrial Light and Magic and the film crew back then, and Greg Fraser, and they were shooting an LED volume, probably even bigger than the one we just saw in the previous presentation, 1899. So the Dark Bay Studios. And the stories were going around, oh, they only have one camera, so we are running out of business. And so if this is the future, and they don't have any lights, only LED volumes. So it was a bit of a scary moment, but it's okay, we are selling lights, we are selling cameras. Instead of 10 cameras, only one camera on set, so that is a nightmare, and so on. So, but as I said, we were already in touch with them at that time and supported a lot. Plus, personally for me, it was summer 2019 in August. That was pre-COVID. I had dinner with Greg Fraser in Budapest while he was shooting Dune. So that was just after he came over from LA shooting Mandalorian, the first 5 episodes. I think he was shooting them. And then coming over to Dune. And we had dinner and we all talked about lights, etc. And of course, at a certain point, I tried to touch base on Mandalorian. And he, by chance, showed me some pictures. And of course, his biggest challenge was, first of all, the Mandalorian is still considered a big production, but they didn't have the budget to travel around the world like in normal Star Wars, but they wanted to have this, different sets and scenes. And most importantly for him, the Mandalorian is wearing a dark, shiny helmet. And that is probably, you're the specialist, I guess that's a nightmare, especially if this guy is fighting and running around and all those things. So they came up with this idea on mixed reality, or they call it virtual production. And he showed me some pictures, and I thought, oh wow. So that is definitely something interesting. That's how for me personally, the journey started. And in between, so we supported 1899, the production. And Christina mentioned, so we had the project lead and we were coordinating 10 different companies within 2 months to set up the stage. So it was probably a nightmare for the team, a lot of communication, a lot of sweat, but it ended up to work out pretty well, to my knowledge. But as we learned, it's not bulletproof. It's not the setup that you say, okay, well, you just install it once and then it's running. And especially in terms of color calibration, or you heard Marie. They didn't have Marie, but I know that in the background, Nick Summerer and the team, including then ARRI Rental in Berlin, they even developed a lens set for them, which was derived on an anamorphic, large format anamorphic, the alpha lens is how we call it, just to avoid as much as possible Marie. And if the producers don't hear about Marie, it means it worked out. But as I said, a lot of specific hands-on and a lot of details that you had to look into. And luckily we then, in Munich, now we have the chance to work on a research project, BaViPro, together with Bavaria and Scanline, to get a setup that is a bit more, I would call it bulletproof. There will always be challenges on every set, but interconnect of all those different parts. And I even brought one slide, if we fade over to the PowerPoint, just to give you a bit of a feeling what we are talking about. And hopefully, Michael, in Bavaria, you can also then see that, in case it's coming. We don't see it yet. Christina mentioned about the colors and the challenge that you don't see it really, etc., or that the camera sees it different, as the background is an RGB source. The sky panels or orbiters or whatever source you're using then is a multi-channel source, so 4-6 channels, of course, with a good reproduction of your skin tones, so a huge color addition as much as possible. bringing that together is a challenge. Then in combination with the tracking system, so there are several offers at the moment in the market, but they're also learning from production to production because not every tracking system is working the same way. So if you have a so-called stars tracker system, so the camera, there's a separate, like an add-on camera on the main camera, seeing the stars, so like dots, markers, that's okay. But if you have, let's say, an LED ceiling, because of the reflections that you need for car commercials, etc., that tracker is not working anymore. If you have the setup as we saw it now at 1899, and you have that crown, so it's like the 4 or 5 balls and the 20 cameras calculating that works. But if you move around too much, or you have a certain thing, or you're then having like you're hiding and blocking the view on that, you also have trouble. So there are pros and cons, and a lot of expertise from all different suppliers, plus development groups like we are then on BaViPro is now coming together and say, okay, how can we tackle one problem after the next one? And that is exciting time.
Just this little detail with tracking the camera, it's interesting because we have this motion capture system here for movements, for acting, and that is not optical or something like this. This is like motion sensors that work perfectly for doing, or recording the movement. But in this case, it's not accurate enough, right? That's why it has to be optical.
Yes. It has to be really highly accurate and with a very low latency, because you can imagine if you just tilt the camera or pan and tilt for a few degrees, it's the frustum as we heard it, so that where the main area where the camera is looking to, where you have the high resolution, you really, and the parallax, because once you move an object, you move next to an object, and of course you want to see then that the background is also moving in the right direction and appropriate, because your eye would just be too sensitive on that. And that is, those are the challenges. So highly accurate, and the challenge at the moment is if you have a fast pan and the latency between you, if you have a few microseconds, like seven frames, 3 frames, that is a lot. So you really want to bring the latency down, and we heard that you can maybe use more cameras, but if you really have it on that high resolution in real time, so no plates, but real time Vfx builds, and then you want to pan it, the camera, you're really pushing the limits on the system.
Absolutely. Can we switch to the PowerPoint presentation? The screen here, but not losing the zoom, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not sure, Michael, whether you can see that on Zoom. This is not now to let's say blow your mind, but it just shows. So you have the talents or the real set in the center. And so that's of course our real world. We call it mixed reality because you still have the real world in front, and then the virtual background. And we spoke a lot about the LED walls, RGB light sources. Good actually for, normally in the event industry to watch content. It's like TV, but you normally don't put your camera in front of your TV and to film the content. So that's the challenge. And there were, in the beginning, when the first mixed reality setups were coming, say, you have enough light, so no need to put up any fixtures because there's a lot of light available. But, yes and no, because first of all, you don't want to, from one wall to the other side, you don't want to really bring up too much brightness because you have a lot of spill. Secondly, as we said, it's only an RGB source. And if you don't have really the top guys really making RGB source looking good on a skin tone, Greg Fraser can do it with his team, yes, I know, but others maybe not. And luckily, Mandalorian is mostly with a helmet, so you don't need to bother about skin tones. But once you go into a period piece or something else, you really want to make sure that the skin tones are rendered properly. So that's why now more and more productions are going into LED fixtures in combination. and you can set them up separately, but the best thing would be, and we have first results on that we take a certain sampling, so not a single pixel, but a sampling in the Unreal Engine, and then putting that signal, the RGB signal that we convert in XY, different setup, but we convert it into the sky panel into a lighting signal. And that is something we're working on, and that is also part of the BaViPro project, because that makes it really interesting. And as you can imagine, I mean, if I'm sitting here and the light on my skin, or if I want to have a lamp head, then you want to have a mix of the lights coming from that screen, coming from that, maybe a tungsten lamp head, etc., or reflection from the floor. So if you have a virtual environment, you also want to sample that, and then based on that, putting that one onto an LED lamp head. And or if you have it's also one thing that we saw quite often. I mean, it's creative freedom, but we have an LED volume, so we have an LED sky, perfect. So they bring in the virtual world, and the virtual world has a blue sky, of course. Well, that's good, but then suddenly the whole set is blue. And that is not what we want to have, because, I mean, if you have 4,000 Kelvin outside, this is maybe you have a blue sky, but of course it's a mix of your environments, of the sun and the blue sky, etc. So those are the things where we're all learning, and where color calibration is definitely key. And in case you have a question in between, so I don't want to hammer you just with information, then feel free. But as we have a small group, I think it's a good opportunity also to ask questions. Camera tracking, we touch base. Of course, you can do a normal light panel, lighting control, but even better if you then combine it somehow with the real-time engine. Unreal at the moment is widely used, but also Unity has a solution, of course. I mean, those are the two main software developing companies. Last week, by chance, it was just in the news, so Unity bought Veta Digital in New Zealand, so Peter Jackson's VFX group, for $1.6 billion. And that is definitely a strategic move into our industry, and also move, and as they described it, that things merge. There's a certain convergence now between a creative filmmaking, content making, then the gaming industry, and what Facebook now claims and proposes as meta world. So it will be interesting the next year. So you're definitely in the right time, that creativity is not only just, let's call it one-dimensional. So you have a lot of freedom, different direction to develop yourself. Yeah. And you mentioned it in the previous presentation. I mean, the render farm in the background is just amazing, and you really want to have as low latency as possible. And there's a lot of development activity in that area as well, and that will also be part of the evaluation of the BaViPro project. And and syncing the whole thing, because syncing and metadata, that is another big chapter. So you need a timestamp, you need to clock that. You don't want to have refresh rates of the camera interfering with the refresh rates of the LED wall, and so on. So don't want to scare you off. It's an amazing tool once you have it set up, and hopefully then in future with the R&D work that is funded by the Bavarian Ministry. So having that one then in place, hopefully then even makes life easier to really focus on the creative world. Yeah.
So this BaViPro project is kind of a system with all those different and like then a certification of, if this is a BaViPro project in the future, then it works, right?
Kind of, yes. I mean, it shouldn't be about. Yes, it's a funded project, so we want to bring in our R&D, so our ideas, but it will be very difficult. It can't be like copy and paste everywhere in the world, so it should be still be an open system. I mean, having that opportunity really to focus on the interconnects, so how are the interfaces, really will help a lot. And maybe we define one or another, standard sounds big, but just defining interface that works for our industry. Because as we said, I mean, the LED panels are normally coming from the event industry for your personal view, human eye, and not for our industry and the purpose that we need. And so if we then derive something that helps the overall industry, it would be great.
There's a question up there. Do we need the slide? Otherwise, we can switch to the Zoom, or?
Yeah, we can switch to the Zoom. That
Okay.
Michael is back. Yeah.
I was just wondering about this lighting and how it's connected with the 3D engine. Is this about special effects lighting? So when the virtual world kind of explodes or things like this, then the natural light works together, or is this, or didn't I understand this correctly?
Well, it's for both. So it's not only for, let's say, supporting special effects. It's, as we learned, I mean, you can have an LED wall or LED ceiling like a display, but you have the advantage you have the direct reflection. If you have a car commercial, that's great. But on ship, if you want to have the cloud scenes or then storm, etc., or especially then in combination daylight and a good color rendition on your skin, then you better bring in real set lighting. So we have that in the ceiling, but it's kind of well, ideally it's connected with the Unreal Engine, so with the virtual world, then it's perfect. But at the moment, it's more like a hybrid solution. So you always have a gaffer and a desk operator. Then, as Christina said in the previous meeting, that you have a one-day pre-lighting, and hopefully that one-day pre-lighting really goes down over time. Yeah.
Okay, whenever Michael, you and Bavaria want to say something, you have to. I mean, because it's different.
Yeah, it was very interesting what Markus said. I think it was very, very technical, and I think the entire topic is so comprehensive. It's so, because it has so many dimensions, and internally. Internally only here at Bavaria, not with ARRI and not with Scanline and Eyeline, we have so many internal discussions about the pros and cons and about the limits and the possibilities. So this is, and just to bring a little bit structure in this, I mean, what Markus said is the technical part, obviously one of the most important. So if the technique doesn't work, like the rest is, you don't need to talk about the other parts. And of course, LEDs is a good point. We have been working with LED panels for years now for our non-fiction, for our entertainment shows. But as Markus said, it's for TV cameras, which are different. They have different sensors than a normal full format, large format ARRI camera, for example. And of course, the viewers, they don't expect it to be a real background. So this has been different for us as well. But going a little bit away from the technical part, I think there's so many, because we are, as Bavaria, are a full service technical provider, meaning that we offer production services and we rent technique, and the production services itself. It's the issue, or the thing we talk at the moment the most about, is that we have to make clients clear that the production workflow changes. The entire team has to be aligned. And so everyone involved in this kind of production has to change their production approach. For one example, the visual effects production has to be in advance. So you have to be very clear, either with previs, with storyboards, with your visual effects supervisor, what is it that we're gonna show? So there is not much space for any last minute. Of course, you can change camera position, but you have to be very clear what should be on the screens, what should be seen. You must take your 6 to 12 months, whatever, to have all visual production work done in advance. We had some first requests from clients who said, "Oh, we heard that you're going to have these production volume technique. Can we start in January with the production?" And then we said, "Okay, we don't have it ready now, but have you done any visual effects work so far?" No, we thought we can do it like on set. So So there's also a lot of misconceptions about that. So I think this is one important to get the entire head of creative people on board, that they must get, apart from their creative thinking, also a very technical thinking dimension also, because they have to know what is the possibilities and the limits and how has the workflow will change. So I think this is one of the soft factors that must be considered. Another part we are just thinking is, of course, it works obviously for Mandalorian and for, I think they're doing this Obi-Wan Kenobi series and Boba Fett series at Disney. But I read that the last Mandalorian season has $250 million something budget. So that means a budget per episode of about 30 million. And our goal is, of course, to that we act as a service producer for German producers, for the German market. So what are the budgets here? For what can be financed out of Germany? And what is Netflix and Amazon and Disney, what kind of budgets are they bringing to Germany, and what can be produced, realized here based on the productions they're investing or spending here. I'm not sure if we will have $250 million budget here. Less would be also okay. And it's US, it's different, and I don't know what is below and above the line here. But I think a normal German cinema feature film, if it has 10 million, it's a lot, normally. So it's also important for us. So what is realistic to be? It doesn't help anybody if you have a very big LED virtual production stage here and no one uses it because no one can afford this thing.
But I heard also that a lot of clients, a lot of companies like Sky, for example, they in the future will not greenlight a show if you cannot show the sustainable production. So with reduction of traveling and different locations and things. So if you are ready and you can provide a virtual production or LED volume, then I think because I know that Bavaria is using green currency, right? Green Strom, green power. Yeah. So that, for example, makes it for production companies possible to shoot at Bavaria when you also can run your stages with this kind of green electricity.
Well, of course, this green production part is important because it's getting more and more important for all clients and all channels and everything. So if a production is not green, and I think virtual production, volume or mixed reality production has many advantages in terms of its green policy. Because as you said, you don't have to travel that much. Our electricity is 100% CO2 neutral, so that helps in that terms. But I'm not sure if this is the driving motivation at first. If someone develops a film or a series,
no, I mean it in terms of the budget, because you mentioned Mandalorian budget and German budget, but in German budget is subsidy involved in the financing and things like that. So, then if the budget or if it costs that much, then it costs that much, because on the other hand, you cannot get a green light shooting it without the possibilities.
Yeah, that's right, of course. Without any green parts, you won't get the subsidy in the future.
Yeah, I mean, green production will be another big topic for the next years to come, and what is green, what isn't. And just a little side comment. I mean, we always talk about lighting, and that's LED lighting is saving because of high efficiency, etc. But daylight, so HMIs are as efficient as LEDs, and so even though it's a conventional light source, we really have to differentiate on that. Oh, there's a question.
Can I ask like that now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just thinking that I think one of the most difficult parts about this kind of production is that you come the closest to the closest where you come to the result, like you see the result only when you shoot the film, because only then you have the finalized shots, the finalized 3D world, and so on. So I fear that it's really difficult to stay creative in pre-production and to because you always have to imagine how it could look like. So that's why what I was thinking about. Do you know how, or is there any kind of technology that is making possible to make previs or something?
That word is crazy.
Yes.
Visualization,
yeah, something like this. For example, to see the shots or to develop the shot, to develop the storyboard in some really trashy, simple way, but just in order to have at least a glance at how it could look like. Because as far as I know, like the most creative shots are created by doing it and then trying something else.
If I may answer that one, you're exactly right. Doing it and see how it looks, etc. DPs, etc.
Yes.
Everybody on set working together on location. Of course, that also works even better. But imagine now in those productions you normally have a green screen, so everybody has to imagine what is on that screen, in the background.
Yeah.
While in an LED volume with the Unreal Engine, for example, or Unity, then you really see what you get. So yes, to really see the final image, you have to look on the monitor because maybe at the moment with color the color calibration, etc. But you see already where you are. And what I learned with talking to the DP, so the crews working on those virtual productions or mixed reality productions, actually after 2-3 days grooving in, they were by far more creative than before. Because you suddenly say, oh, can I have that tree from there over there? Then on the brain bar, the person, the guy operating the Unreal Engine is just moving the tree. Oh, I need another one, so he brings another asset in. Things were then really speeding up because of this creative community then on set, live, really, and creating the image together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I heard.
Yeah, the way of creativity is changing, but it's not getting bad. It's getting different. Mm-hmm. And you have to imagine, it's not that long ago that you shot something and you couldn't see anything. You had to wait a couple of days until you get the rushes, you get the film, and then you have to project it, even sometimes only in black and white before and things like that. And then you think, oh no, I want that tree on the other side. This is ridiculous, Now
Yes.
you have it all in camera, and even the visual effects in camera. So it opens up a totally different way of being creative, right?
Yes, but it's only like while shooting there are many advantages. But like what I feel the most is the creativity while creating the storyboard. Because like this is the most important part of the one of the most important parts of filmmaking process.
I think you will have the Unreal Engine, so there's that virtual setup that you create already supporting your storyboard. So you have maybe a first draft, a very rough concept, and then you can, like Christina said, that the DP or then I think Yanti, etc., so that they had a virtual. They walked through that virtual environment and really getting a first inspiration on that and selecting shots and selecting the setups, or then even creating that. Not to the full extent. It's only a rough version in the beginning, and then you build the set and you create the final surrounding on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have exactly. What she said with the virtual, with the VR glasses and things like that, to walk on set, to go onto the ship before they start shooting and finding. I remember it was like 30 years ago or longer. Steven Spielberg built model kits of the entire set, and then with little mirrors and cameras, they kind of did pre-viz at that time, not computer generated. They were modeled in miniature models to find out the best way of shooting, and became very creative with this and did their movies. So it's always at the time, the technique you have, you can get creative, but of course you are right, it's changing. The way is changing how to become. I remember when I did my first feature film as a director, there was a very funny situation because there was one who came in, and it was in the middle of the 90s, and he said, well, we can now do the previs with computer. Because we just put, like a ball for a head and a cylinder for the body, and we place it there, and we have that camera, and then we can do very, very fast our storyboard and do it previous, because now computer animation is working, and it was 94. And I said, yes, I know computer animation because I'm doing it myself. To be fast, very fast in previs, you only can use like those balls and things, and but where's the emotion? Where's the emotion of the character? And I only look at the ball, and the ball is doing nothing, not smiling, not crying, not nothing. Storyboard is all about testing also not only camera movements and sizes, also about the play, about the acting. And so and I convinced them, of course, and then we did the classical storyboarding with drawings at the time. But that will be changing eventually with the meta-humans and things where you can really fast in real time get your storyboard acted out before you shoot the movie. Right?
Or quick as a combination of the approaches.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, all those Marvel projects where they have the entire movie as an animated feature film already finished, kind of, and then they start the shooting. That's extreme budgets.
I would like to ask a question as well. In classic photography, it is always possible to change the focus and pull the focus from the person to the background and so on. What are the issues here with your LED wall? Because we heard several times today that never put the LED wall in focus, but then you have to kind of simulate this. If you want to see the landscape that is on the LED screen sharp, how can this be done? Does there have to be some kind of a transition between the camera signal and the background signal, or how can we do that?
That is, it can be done, while not 100% clear. I mean, if you really want to have the sharpest image, then it gets tricky, but so there are always some limitations, as we said.
ARRI is saying about a sharp image that's different than normal people.
Yeah. No, so this is... But, actually, what we are testing out a lot is, so first of all, that once you change, first of all, using different lenses, focal length will change the way how the background looks like. So your frustum, as we said, will be smaller, larger, etc. Or then you open up your aperture, and then also the background changes, because... And that's the tricky part now, because you want to have that effect, you open up, that's what you normally are used to in your cinematography. The things are really, how much can you push the limits, and especially how far are you away from the wall. I would say if you're really now on that 20-meter distance and you look from far on 20 meter onto the wall, then I guess you find setups where you can actually see even the background sharp enough. But that's also part of that R&D activity, the development work, and really where are the boundaries. Once you overcome worry, then you maybe need to tackle the next thing and so on. Because for worry, of course, by chance, it's always better to have a bit of a blurry background, or that the lenses are not too sharp. and so on.
I just want to confirm what Markus said. These are exactly these issues. How is depth of field? How is it? How much can an actor actually warp or run? How far can he go? How static is it? How dynamic is it? And of course, there's also this combination or this merge of virtual set construction and the real set construction. If you watch some behind the scenes clips at YouTube from Mandalorian, you see there's an entire forest or planet set up in a 2,000 square meter soundstage, and then just the background is just LED. In addition, some trees or whatever. So this is also these things we just do research about. So where has it be positioned? What is with classical SFX? Can something explode, or is our LED wall then damaged? How is it with the dynamic range of the LED walls? How is sharp lighting? If you have some reflections from the LED wall or some hard lighting, how is that tackled? So all these different smaller or minor research fields we're just thinking about. So and the deeper you get, the more unanswered questions are there at the moment. But I think that's a good thing. That's what we have fun about, and all our colleagues here have fun about, to find out about this. And what you said before, I think, is very important. Of course, sometimes in Babelsberg they have already this kind of LED wall, and it works somehow in LA. But on the other hand, we are maybe as a second or third mover and have all this experience here at Bavaria, is also not to underestimate, I think. Not to invest too fast in a technique that is maybe then outdated in a few years. And one feedback we get from our LED module providers is that this technique is also running very fast. So in 4 years' time, I don't know how the pixel pitch and the resolutions of a new LED model will be then. Is more array still an issue then or not? I don't know. So all these things have to be considered at the moment, and it's it's a field of many open questions.
Absolutely. I'm coming from animation. I'm not coming from live action, and of course, my question is: can you imagine shooting in a virtual stage with real actors on a set piece with your real-time rendered background? But this actor is acting together with the CG animated character. And the CG animated character is, of course, on that stage, another actor in a motion capture suit. How does this then work maybe with other CG characters in the background and back and forth?
Good question, Michael. Well, seeing the pace, how things develop at the moment, I wouldn't say no. At the moment, the backgrounds are either then, of course, water or, well, landscape, etc., or spaceships. But you don't really see live action, as I would call it, or the real-time action in the virtual world. Maybe because of latency and computing power, etc. We try to then bridge that gap, because we are part of the VoluCap studio, so 3D capture in Berlin, also in Babelsberg, where you then can have, let's say, a certain sequence really with, I think, 32 cameras where we capture a person acting, and this is then a 3D asset, a certain sequence. And of course, it could be then for the next Mandalorian in the background that some stormtroopers are walking down the corridor, that you normally would only show an empty corridor. But at the moment, everybody tries to avoid, because of certain technical limitations, that you directly interact with the wall. So you try to stay away 2-3 meters, as we heard this morning, or then, at least as far as possible. And also where we are still careful on those sets that you don't have a too, let's say, steep angle onto the wall. So you try to be more perpendicular to the wall and so on. But who knows? I mean, as we just said, technology will evolve, pitch will go, well, there are already finer pitches, it's just about driving them in with low latency, and who knows, that maybe we find ways that you also can interact with the wall. It means that the wall is just a window to the virtual world. So I wouldn't say no. I mean,
well, the biggest advantage is that the actors actually can see their surrounding,
Yes.
and they are not looking at a green wall. That is a bit good thing, but this is also something should kind of get into it with animated characters that are not there yet, you know. Like, for example, Huibu 2 is now out in the theaters, I think, or starting. And that's the type of production I'm talking about, where you have Huibu as a CG character, and then you shoot this on a virtual production stage.
That would be interesting. I would be absolutely curious, and would be great to explore that a bit more over time. As I said, there are certain limitations, but maybe on certain setups we could find a way. Or if the camera movement is fixed, maybe you have to think about that one, that you know, like you're using a board system, whatever, the camera with movement fixed, so that you can pre-render everything, pre-visualize, and you have a certain setup how it would then happen. Definitely interesting. So yeah, let's dive into that one sometime.
Okay, good. I think you have now an idea a little bit about virtual production, or where it is now at the moment. A lot of ideas and questions are still there, of course. It's a crazy time. And thank you so much, you both, that you spent your hour here. And of course, the preparation as well. So it's more than just 1 hour. And that is helping a lot for us here in the university as well, to get an idea of that there are companies and people outside working on things. Neighbors, ARRI is a neighbor.
I mean, anytime if you feel like, okay, we're always looking for interns, etc. And it's an exciting time. Yes, we spoke about budgets, etc. Well, 250 million is a lot, but I mean, who would have ever imagined 3 years ago that we get a Netflix production into Berlin with a 45 million euro budget for 10 episodes? I mean, it was unheard of. And the great thing, and by chance, just a side remark, this week there are 200 executives of Netflix in town. They have their annual board meeting in town. So my colleagues were in the plane, in the business class, they were all Netflix backpacks around. But from my side, what we see out of the discussions, I mean, through those streaming platforms, suddenly regional content is getting a by far more higher value than it's not only Hollywood. It's who would have ever imagined that a Korean production that wasn't even a big budget at that time is now the most seen production or a series, a TV series in the world. So
Absolutely.
It's a great opportunity, and you're just on the right time, because you can be creative in the future, and technology is just enabling you, hopefully, more creativity in future.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you for having us.
Remote participating. Yes. And see what is next then up here. And have a good lunch. And thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Markus.